But not the Bee Gees, because they're just like the gayest thing ever.
You say it like it's a bad thing.
You don't turn 45 and you're still single and you sing Bee Gees songs. You're going to give everyone the wrong impression.
So they can see my beard and that'll be all sorted out.
They're going to be gone anyways, right? Okay, so what was the thing you were going to say before I went back to the Israel thing?
Did you have any reflections on last week's chat?
Yes, I did. Is anybody left here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't see Ginger or... I'll just go off.
Just go off.
Ginger, last week. Hey, Ginger. We were talking about abortions and when does the fetus become a child, and when does the embryo become a fetus, and all this kind of stuff, right? And I said that according to the Gemara, according to the Talmud, it says that in the first 40 days after conception, that the I guess it's called an embryo or whatever. It's considered mayim bi'alma. That's considered just merely water, and it's not a life of its own until the 40th day when the soul enters this fetus, and it has a soul, right? So Ginger asked, what scientific proof? Oh God, get that off.
My mother says I like it better as it's neater. Are you going to keep them?
I'm not getting involved. Can I please not be interrupted here?
Sorry.
What scientific proof do you have for 40 days? That's her question.
Okay.
And I'm going to say her question is it's irrelevant. I'll explain why. There's no scientific proof for that, but that's got nothing to do with it. I can't prove to you scientifically that a soul entered the fetus, because I don't know how to identify a soul. There's no way to. It's not applicable. You know, if I could show you a soul according to science, I would pretty much eliminate the idea that there's no God. You know what I mean? It's like you can't. It's something that's not visible, so there's no way to scientifically prove it. You just have to take the Torah's word for it. And then when there's a question between Torah versus science, and they don't stem, then you drop science and you keep Torah. Okay. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, Bob asked the question. Is Bob watching? No. Is the baby's soul in the baby or just close by? Well, in the baby. The soul enters the baby. And then my nephew asked the question. Or he may have pointed out something. We were talking about a different point. We were talking about, this was in video 9. We were talking about how the Torah says that if you should always hire a Jew for your slave as opposed to a non-Jew for your slave. And I made a big shtier how, by the same token, you should always hire a Jew to do your nanny work rather than a Mexican non-Jew to do your nanny work. If the Mexican was Jewish, that would be fine, right? Like, you know, and I made the point you could like bring one in from Europe, you know, England or Scotland or wherever.
Northern Scandinavia.
And you made the point about
au pairs.
Yeah, the au pairs in Scandinavia, you really wanted to bang.
Yeah.
And I remember that whole conversation, right? So my nephew made a point, and he said the same principle is even worse in the state of Israel because they hire all the Arabs to do the construction. And that's a very good point. You got a country full of Jews, right?
Yeah, you had all the maids of Palestinians.
And every hammer that is lifted when I was there was lifted by an Arab. Like, no Jew would bang a nail. Like, I'm not going to bang any nail.
No Hebrew hammer.
And you see all these Jews are starving and they're poor, and all the Arabs are building all the homes. Like, what is wrong with this picture?
Jews don't like to do that sort of
Yeah, I was thinking
work.
that's probably part of it. They can't get a Jew to do it.
They'd rather work as hookers.
Alright, so that's it. That's all I have from last week. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got from last week?
Nothing from last week.
What do you got? Before we get to the parsha, what do you got? Got anything interesting to talk about?
Well, you don't mind if I see other guys and interview other guys, do you?
No, as long as you don't bring up my name.
Hey folks, I'm Levi Ben Abraham. I'm here with Rabbi Rabs. I discuss the weekly Torah portion every Monday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on my live cam and on these YouTube videos. This week's parashah is Terumah, Exodus chapter 25 to Exodus chapter 27, verse 19. What is Terumah?
Terumah? You want me to explain what Terumah is? Terumah is the portion of our harvest, if you will, that goes to support the Kohanim, the Kohens, because they don't make a living. They don't have their own crops, if you will. So they're busy doing all the work in the base of English and doesn't pay very much. There's no way to make money out of that. It doesn't create anything. So us who would grow farm stuff, or we'd ranch, we'd have 50 cattle, right? So it says you're supposed to give 1/50, I believe, to the Kohanim. So the Kohen would send out a representative to every farm and every ranch and say, okay, you've got 200 heads of cattle, we'll take 4. And you give it to them, and that supports them, right? It's the idea that Jews should take care of those who serve them. So if, you got a rabbi and he's teaching you Torah over the internet, you don't just get it for free, right? It's expected that, you
contribute a little something.
Contribute a little something. 1/50 would be nice, You're making 50. You're taking home 50 grand a year. I'm thinking 1,000 should go into my bank account. Doesn't that make sense?
We've got a teenage girl in the chat room.
Who?
Esther.
Oh yeah.
She really a teenage girl?
She's my Facebook wife. Hey Esther.
How old is she?
She's 18.
Oh my. Baruch Hashem.
You know what does it?
What does it?
I don't have these long droopy things hanging on my face. That's the difference. I don't try to get like the Blues Brothers look.
Okay, great. So this week's Pasha is Terumah.
Okay, so did I explain that properly? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So the Torah is obsessed with order.
Order.
There's to be order in the sanctuary, in the camp, in the calendar, in the food, in everything.
Yes.
Now what happens when you have order? One of the things when you have order is you have hierarchy. So the more religious you go in Jewish life, the more hierarchy. So you go to a Reform temple on a Saturday morning and they'll sit around and everyone will share their feelings about this week's Pasha. Go to a conservative synagogue, the rabbi may talk about the Pasha and he might take questions. Okay, you go to modern Orthodox, the rabbi will talk about the Pasha and then people come up to him at Kiddush and ask him questions or give him their opinions. You go to a traditional Frum shul and the Rav stands up and delivers a shiur on Shabbos morning. He doesn't take questions and people don't go up to him afterwards and tell him their feelings about his shiur, generally speaking. The more traditional you go in Jewish life, the more there's hierarchy. So hierarchy means it acknowledges that some people are holier than others. Some people are more learned than others. And not everybody's feelings and thoughts about the Pasha or about Torah or about life are equally important. So the more people live a Torah life, the more they accept hierarchy. That there are sages who are Gedolim, and there are sages who are not Gedolim, but they're sages. And then there are Balabatim who study Torah every day in the original language. Then there are those who go to Daf Yomi with a translation from Art Scroll. And then there are those who just come to shul once a week. But there's a hierarchy. And you understand that some people are much more serious about Torah than others. So Korach says, are we not equally holy? The answer is no, we are not equally holy. For instance, you have among you right now a person who owns the domain name moralleader.com. Nobody else owns that domain name.
Very nice. Now, can I
please
add on to this? I'm glad, Levi, that you made that speech and that you understand that the more from a person is and the more they are closer to God, the more we accept an opinion from somebody who knows more than us and we don't question it. That's called the Masorah.
Exactly. It's what I've always been saying for 6 months now.
that it comes directly from Sinai, all the way down, and